we've proven over the past few years, especially working with the city of Bend and their Waterize program, that we can get thousands of plants in the ground that are native, attract pollinators, and they're all going in everybody's front or backyards. So I really think that building a pathway starts something tiny, a little corner in your yard, and then your neighbor does it, and then their neighbor does it, and then we connect the parks together, and that is how we build a pathway.
From the Oregon State University Extension Service, this is PolliNation, a podcast that tells the stories of researchers, land managers, and people like you who are making bold strides to improve the health of pollinators. I'm your host, Dr. Adoni Melathopoulos, Associate Professor of Pollinator Health in the Department of Horticulture. Central Oregon is a biodiversity hotspot when it comes to pollinating insects, but it's also an area with intense human population growth. This week, I'm pleased to be joined by two members of Pollinator Pathway Bend to talk about how the organization has managed to develop habitat for pollinators in light of this urban development. Lisa Sanco is a board member for Pollinator Pathway Bend and the director of the Worthy Garden Club, which is a nonprofit organization based out of Bend that focuses on natural science education. She specializes in native plant care and public education. And Gwen Bartonek is president of Pollinator Pathway Bend, and she owns a landscape consulting and design business. Pollinator Pathway Bend was the first pathway east of the Mississippi, and it acts as a catalyst for pesticide-free native plant habitat in urban areas. If you drive around Bend, you'll see many of these little spots, and there's actually a great map on their website that has each spot that has been enhanced for pollinators. And in this episode, you're going to hear about, if you are in the Bend area, how you can get involved. So enjoy this episode. We are taking a summer break, and we will return with some whole new episodes, some great episodes in September. But without further ado, let's head over the Cascades into the high desert to Bend, Oregon, this week on PolliNation. Welcome to PolliNation. I'm so glad to have you here, Gwen and Lisa.
Thanks for having us, Anthony.
We're super excited.
I'm super excited. It seems long overdue. I've long admired the great work that's happening across the Cascades in Bend. And maybe to start with, we have had people on the podcast before talking about pollinator pathways, but what is a pollinator pathway? What's the underlying philosophy behind it?
So a pollinator pathway is essentially a corridor of pesticide-free habitat for native pollinators. It can take a lot of different forms. If you're in an urban area, a lot of times it's just connecting urban lots with each other, using the park system, connecting to wildlands. If it's in the country, you can have a lot more expansive plantings or wildlands. But the philosophy is to create habitat for all of our lovely pollinators so that they can thrive and migrate if needed, and have enough food and a place to live.
Thanks for that. I guess, the one thing that I have noted, the pathway in Bend has been around for the longest that I've been aware of. It's been going for a number of years. Can you tell us a little bit about its history, when it got started?
Yeah, we are actually the first pollinator pathway west of the Mississippi.
Really?
The national pollinator pathway organization started on the East Coast in Connecticut around 2017. And it was actually a woman who doesn't live here anymore. She moved to Southern California, and we miss her very much. But our pollinator pathway here was started around 2020 by Basie Klopp. And she just kind of got jazzed about, she's always been a native plant lover, and that led her into all of our pollinators. She knew that they were under threat. And there was a report that came out in 2020. It might have actually been about honeybees, now that I think about it. But, just talking about how we're losing habitat and how that's affecting our pollinators and how that affects our quality of life as humans. So she started the pathway on her own. She pretty much ran it. This is all volunteer, so she wasn't getting paid to do anything. And she worked with a lot of local businesses or the Parks Department, City of Bend, to start putting in native plants in different areas like roundabouts, in the parks. And we got our 501c3 nonprofit designation in 2023,
Yep.
end of 2023, early 2024. So now we are an official nonprofit. Basie has moved away. So we formed a steering committee, and then which has turned into a board now. And, we've gotten a lot done, but like we said, it's all volunteer run. So it kind of fits and starts. And every year it's different, which is interesting. But we've been working on building our gardens and building the movement, creating the resources. Central Oregon, I think there's a lot of gardening resources for Oregon, but a lot of times that's more Western centric. But we've got a great OSU Extension office here. They have a ton of resources on their site. So we're working on just kind of filling the gaps to create more homeowner or renter focused resources for what they can do in their own properties to be on the pathway.
I suppose this is, some people, when they think about conservation, they think about a large organization, and which there's some great organizations I think about, like the Shoots Land Trust as an example, with wildlands, and they may not think about like individual homeowners or just people living in cities kind of banding together and doing this. It seems the pathway has this underneath it as a key kind of principle of a lot of people working together can create something much bigger than them doing it individually.
Absolutely. I think that we've proven over the past few years, especially working with the city of Bend and their waterwise program, that we can get thousands of plants in the ground that are native, attract pollinators, and they're all going in everybody's front or backyards. So I really think that building a pathway starts something tiny, a little corner in your yard, and then your neighbor does it, and then their neighbor does it, and then we connect the parks together, and that is how we build a pathway.
That's great, Gwen. And the way that you put it as well, the Bend Waterwise, the City of Bend Waterwise program, Bend does have challenges. And it seems as though this program is wonderful because not only does it serve, this need of, plugging holes in habitat that Lisa pointed out, but it seems to have these other benefits that are uniquely posed for a place like Bend. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Bend's got a lot of diversity as far as not only just pollinators, but just by the population. And I think it's exciting that some of the new home builders are including native plants as just part of their building plan. So when we think about what the landscape looks like here 20 years ago, now, and in 20 years, we're going to see a lot more of those native plants come because we're trying to reduce all of that water usage while also increase the population here with population density. So I think that I'm excited to see what ends up happening. And I think that we have a turf replacement program that has been absolutely a hit here in town. And I hope to see that grow and expand. And we work with getting more native plants in the ground with that program, and then other programs here that we help foster.
Yeah, I think with all the new people moving into the area too, if you're not familiar with Central Oregon, in the past, 20 years, but really a lot in the past 5 years, pretty much since 2020 COVID, when people could work remotely and decide to live other places, we've had a huge influx of new people moving to the area from like Washington, California, maybe somewhere where it's completely different climate. So people are looking for resources already on like what they can grow here. It's very different. We have a short season, cold nights, hot days. We just had a hailstorm last week that wiped out a bunch of plants. So it's like very challenging. So people are already looking for these resources. So if we can come in and provide the resources, emphasize, the benefits of native plants, we're really happy to fill that gap.
I suppose one thing that many people, Lisa, you mentioned this when we were talking before, many people have this perception. You go to the west of the Cascades and it's green and there must be more pollinator diversity there, which is for most of our genera, it's not the case. Bend likely is the metro center in Oregon with the highest insect biodiversity.
Exactly. The high desert is a difficult place to survive. So a lot of our wildlife, including pollinators, sometimes have really specific adaptations. They have a lot of different microclimates around here, which can foster different populations of species of bees, butterflies, all those fun things. Yeah, I think a lot of people think high desert is very scrubby. There's not a lot of life out there. It's hot. The soil is moon dust. I often hear it referred to. Like, what do you even grow out there? But, because it is so difficult to survive, our plants and our wildlife, they're all, pretty diverse and tough.
They are, which is why when you think about saving pollinators, a lot of people, and we were talking about this earlier, think about saving honeybees. And so folks will get like a hive put into their backyard. And we're saying, first of all, we love honey and we have a lot of respect for honeybees, but native bees are so much more well suited to our climate. They're well suited to the plants, and they've been evolving together for thousands of years. And so our habitat is already built for them. And it's not going to take an expensive hive or equipment or a new nuke every year if your hive fails to take care of them. And so we really just encourage people to look a little further when you think about attracting pollinators to your garden.
Well, that's well said. There are just so many. When I just think about the bees, it's, you start getting onto the east slopes of the Cascades and into the high desert. It is a playground of different species. It's so wonderful and diverse. And as soon as you develop an eye for some of them, the gardening for them becomes, something. It fulfills you right for its own. Don't know what I'm trying to say here, but it brings happiness to me.
It's very gratifying,
Yeah,
for sure. I love to sit in my front porch is like my oasis. I sit there and I've got my native plant garden. And I just watch them buzzing, and you feel like so accomplished that like made these plants thrive somewhere where there's so little water and such extreme weather. And then you've done it well enough that you have all these creatures now who are buzzing around you.
That is so well said.
Doug Tallamy, I'm sure you're familiar with him, ecologist, University of Delaware. He basically is saying, build it and they will come. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do in the tiniest of pockets, and then watching it spread throughout Bend. And it is happening. They are here. We just built a hummingbird garden at Orchard Park, which is one of the parks that we've been maintaining a small native garden there. So our collaboration with Bend Parks and Rec has been absolutely game-changing for us in building that pathway. But we built it in April, planted all those plants, and the hummingbirds love it. So we already have at least 3 different hummingbirds, the rufous hummingbird there at the garden right now. And so we're just growing that pathway, one planting at a time.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we definitely try and focus on too, is that like small efforts do matter a lot. Whether you're a renter who can't redo their landscaping and you just have room for a couple pots, or, you have a roundabout in your neighborhood that you can take over, that it's like, I think a lot of people are looking for good things to do right now. They feel just like a little bit hopeless and like, what can I do to affect positive change? And this is a great way to, and fairly easy, once you have the resources to make it happen.
Well, thank you that's something that I wanted to pick up that Gwen mentioned earlier, were resources. That the Pollinator Pathway is not simply putting dots on a map and connecting things, but it is about giving people the tools to do this. Tell us a little bit about the resources that you've developed to get people on board and help them deal with these challenges of maybe making the transition from growing a traditional garden to starting to incorporate native plants and knowing which plants to get and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of great information on our website, which is pollinatorpathwaybend.org. And we have, for starters, up at the top, just kind of your basics of how you can be on the pathway. So that's planting native plants, not using pesticides, leaving your stems, leaving your leaves. And then when you scroll down, it has some more in-depth handouts. So like one of the best ones I think we've developed is the native plant pollinator list. And we really just pulled that from, I had found I was trying to find a list myself, and I'd found quite a few, but they were kind of short, maybe like 24 species. And I was looking for something more extensive. So I just started collecting these lists and I put it into one big list, and it's got this great chart. It'll give the common name, scientific name, the growing requirements as far as water and sun goes, and then what color the blooms are, when you can expect it to bloom, and what pollinator visitors you can expect. So that's probably my favorite one, because I've heard a lot of great feedback we all have of like,
That's all Lisa.
print it out,
Mhm.
take it to the nursery, and it's like, I tried to not make it too long. It's probably like 4 pages, I think. And there's more you could put on there if you want. That was a really useful one, I think, just to get people started on like, what are the natives here, and like where do I even put them? How do they grow? And then I think we have a couple of others on there of planting and maintenance. How do you plant the plants? How do you take care of them? And then the pollinator friendly practices you can do in your own garden, as far as like leaving your leaves, leaving the habitat. So you're creating it, but you're also like letting nature do its thing. So we have started on those, and then we're working on developing a list of local landscape contractors who work with native plants, because that's a big need around here. There's like I said, a lot of growth, a lot of new people. They're looking for people to come do their yard, and there's not a ton of landscapers who work with native plants. So that's one we're working on. What else? Seed saving.
Seed
Anything I
saving.
forgot?
Well, container gardening. So for apartments, we taught a container gardening class, and you guys at Worthy are teaching one as well, but focusing just on the fact that like it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's small things. And if you have an entire apartment complex and half those people plant like 3 pots of native pollinators, you've built a pathway right there. So as we have more and more folks move here, we just want everyone to feel like they can be part of growing the pathway.
I really love that. Not only the resources in terms of like maybe you're a little bit more advanced and you want to do it yourself and you want to like nerd out and go through this list and like I need some pink here and I want something that blooms at that point. But there are classes that are being offered that can, if you have never done it before, you can take the class. You can like have someone demonstrate in front of you and demystify. I always find when it comes to certain gardening practices, it's so nice to have a real person you can talk to who's doing the thing and it's ask your questions to.
Well, in that hands-on aspect, we have a seed saving class this weekend at Worthy Garden Club. I think it's sold out, but that's one of the things that we do as far as our education and outreach go, and having those one-on-one. And it also encourages people to come volunteer and give their time for other events that we have throughout the season.
Oh, fantastic. And so then with the volunteers, it just your ability to educate and pull people in it expands.
Oh, 100%. And people get excited about it. It's when you're talking about plants, you're talking about flowers, and then talking about bees or all the different kinds of insects, hummingbirds. We find so many different unique people of all different ages and abilities. And it's just, we got a great group, and everything the Pollinator Pathway Bend does is on a volunteer basis. So we're always looking for some good eggs to come join us.
Well, we will. I think we should end the episode on how to gather all the good eggs. That will be how we conclude today. Before we do that, I did want to ask you, I know people who are perhaps not in Bend and haven't driven around and seen some of these sites. Maybe you could walk us through some of them, maybe an older established site or perhaps some sites that have just gone in and, things that you've learned in the process of, as these sites have, public sites have gradually expanded.
Yeah. So one of our oldest sites are at a local community garden. It's called Franklin's Corner Community Garden. And BC actually helped plant that with the City of Bend. It's a City of Bend property, but they have built a little community garden. They sourced all the materials by donations, which is pretty amazing. And then that garden went in 2014, volunteer maintained. So, one big thing we've learned with our projects is that creating these partnerships with different entities or groups, organizations can really help with the maintenance aspect. You can find funding that way. Our City of Bend and Bend Parks and Rec department have been really amazing with that, super supportive. But, they all need to be maintained. So if we can partner with other organizations, there's a lot of people in Central Oregon doing kind of similar thing, like a lot of conservation type work. And you mentioned Deschutes Land Trust. There's Think Wild. There's a Native Plant Society out here. So there's a lot of people that we can connect with. That's kind of like subset of interests in whether it's plants or certain types like hummingbirds with the East Cascade
Bird Alliance.
Bird Alliance,
Yes,
sorry.
formerly Audubon, yes.
So we found that like creating these partnerships is really what helps these gardens come to fruition. And then, getting our volunteers in to help with maintenance is a big one. And these gardens evolve over time. 2014 was really, I guess it was kind of long ago, but really not in terms of like a landscape. It takes a while for these to come, like 3 years really, to get a fully mature landscape. And so it's fun to watch the changes, and it's fun to get people involved and have them notice these small changes so that when they're able to do it at home, they're like, there's a sense of patience you have to have. And it's not this instant gratification thing, but it makes it all that more exciting when you've accomplished it. But yeah, Franklin's Corner is our oldest garden. It is really evolved over time. When COVID hit, since it was volunteer run, we didn't have any volunteers there except for, I think, Basie and you. We had a lot of meetings. So it kind of went derelict. And then actually my day job that I actually get paid to do, I run the Worthy Garden Club. And we were looking for community projects, and I had worked at Franklin's Corner weeding, knowing that it needed more help than it had. So we actually took over management of that garden, and the turnaround it's had in like with 3 years that we've been there has been amazing. So, there's always ways to salvage gardens that may have gotten a little overgrown. There's always ways you can change the garden to make it successful. Like gardening is an exercise in patience and failure and learning from your mistakes.
Absolutely.
Well, tell me about some of the newer projects that are going in. What are some of the maintenance? I imagine just knowing that there needs to be some continual maintenance. But what are some of the innovations, or what's gone in this year that you've been really excited about?
Well, speaking of Franklin's Corner, the city has put in some new plantings as they built that roundabout. And while they did an incredible job planting natives, putting in drip irrigation, it is a little bit more maintenance for us because we do want to keep that place looking as beautiful as it is right now. But I think just keeping up on it, like we have our weekly weeding there during the season, it's made all the difference in the world. And so having garden stewards, Henry Lauk is our garden steward supervisor. And then each of those gardens has a garden steward. And so they collaboratively will get together with a group of people for, we need help in El Moody this week, or we're going to have a weeding in Orchard Park. And the hummingbird garden at Orchard Park is a great example of our newest planting, but it is a collaboration with East Cascade Bird Alliance and with Wild Birds Unlimited. And so we come out on the last Friday, third Friday of every month, and everybody just weeds for a little bit. And if we just keep up on it, then it kind of makes things easier in the long run. And I think with anybody's private yard, that if you go on vacation for a week and you come back, things look a little different and the weeds generally have taken over a bit. So having good maintenance in the summer has been really helpful for us.
That's great. I love that as the kind of the message that has developed over time, and this idea of having like a steward, a person responsible, and then a posse that can come in and help, clean things up. It's a great model. I'd never heard of that before, and that is such a great innovation.
Well, and some people feel they just get such a satisfying feeling by weeding because it's such that immediate gratification of you see weeds everywhere, you spend an hour, and these are really short sessions. So 1 hour or more, but generally an hour or less. And then we just go in there and clean up, and then it's done. And then you get a small talk, or just if you want to space out and hang out with the bees, then that opportunity is there for you. But it's a good way to get out and get some exercise, but not take up your whole day.
Fantastic. Well, I guess back to the good eggs. So if you listen to this podcast and you're in the Bend area and you've noticed these spots and you want to get involved, I suppose the website, which is spectacular.
You can thank Lisa for that. She is our webmaster and resource creator.
It is a great job, Lisa, and I do love there's a nice little form where you can submit and get yourself onto the map. Like I like that it's super easy to get in. Like seems like the points of contact to get involved are effortless. Like it doesn't you can find multiple ways to get engaged.
Great feedback. Thank you.
Okay, so visit the website and you'll get connected. And if people want to learn about classes and that, they'll be in the website as well. So and it sounds like you need to watch that events page because these events sell out quickly.
They do. We're really excited. But what's great that's coming up, if you want to learn more for Pollinator Pathways and what we do, October 1st is our fall social and seed swap. And it is at Worthy Garden Club.
Worthy Brewing.
Worthy Brewing.
Worthy Garden Club at Worthy Brewing.
At Worthy Brewing, yes. One and the same.
Yeah.
And so that's at 5:30, I think.
Yes.
And it's a free event, but it's ticketed. And so you can just sign up on our website. I believe we just released those tickets a couple days ago.
Ooh.
So we would love to get to know you. And there are other organizations, if you want to volunteer, like the High Desert chapter of the Native Plant Society of Oregon. You mentioned Deschutes Land Trust. Think Wild is going to start a backyard certification program. So spending time with them is great. Where else? COCC sometimes offers some classes related to planting. So that's a good thing. East Cascade Bird Alliance has a lot of great bird tour.
There's
OSU
actually a ton
extensions. We can go on and on and on forever.
A ton going on here. We're all I feel like we're all just subsets of nature nerds. We've each got our interests.
and we're
the pollinator crew. We're pretty fun, I think, right?
We're pretty fun. we're kind of squirrely. We have a good time together. And I don't know, no matter what you want to do, or if you just want to learn more, check out the website and then just send us an email if you have any specific questions. We would love to answer those for you. And any of us in our level of being on board or just being a volunteer will be able to get an answer for you, or at least direct you somewhere where you can.
Oh, just one more thing about the seed swap. So let's say you have not collected any seeds to swap. Should you still go?
We actually have plenty. We had someone come in last year with like 2 trash bags of Rocky Mountain bee plant. It was actual plants, but you get a lot of seed from them. And she just showed up with 2 trash bags, and we always have plenty.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so
it's such a cool way just to get to know everybody. And like seeds are so, I don't know, they're like little gifts.
Yeah.
They're little gifts. And so we work with some really great native plant nurseries here. Great Basin Nursery and Winter Creek. And I think it's just it says something about Bend and this community that 2 nurseries of just native plants of that size can thrive in a town that's supposed to be 100,000 people. So but I just think it's fantastic. So learn more about plants and come get some seeds and have a beverage and just hang out with us. Get to know us a little bit.
Sounds amazing. Well, it's been a delight talking with you. Keep up the amazing work. We are enviously looking from the other side of the mountains.
Thanks for having us.
Andy. We're really excited to be here today, so thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Show notes with links from each episode are available at the website pollinationpodcast.oregonstate.edu. I also love hearing from you, and there's a form at the website where you can pop in and say hello and give me feedback. If you want to support the show, remember to leave a rating on iTunes, Spotify, or whatever podcast mothership you use. And finally, if you have the means and you want to help support my lab's effort to document bee biodiversity in Oregon, visit OregonBeeAtlas.org and follow down to the donate button where you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Jerry and Judith Paul Native Pollinator Endowment. Every little bit helps. See you next episode.